Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. We want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys our first perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys, but before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, this episode here is going to be very, very interesting, right? Because it was something that I absolutely did not even see coming, number one, and number two, the information that I was able to gain from watching this show that I'm going to, really going through this information I'm going to share with you guys shortly, really surprised me. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Michelle Beadle used to work at ESPN. She used to be on the show Sports Nation. She was very, very talented, quite humorous. She was a huge Spurs fan, and she was an opinionated person, right? And she's had times where she went at Kawhi Leonard. She was known for also going at LeBron James for his decision and all of those different things. But she was pretty good at her job. So what happens? Time went by, and ultimately she left the network, right? So time goes on. Then Rachael Nichols, who was working at ESPN, she was coming up in the ranks, gaining a lot of notoriety, having a lot of shows to the point where she was even covering the NBA Finals. I believe she used to cover the NBA Finals, and that was a big issue that she had later on with the network. But she was covering the NBA Finals and all of that, right? So she rose through the rankings and all of that. And then what happened back in 2021, an audio was leaked of her having a private conversation with someone after a show while she was still being recorded at ESPN. This was during the Orlando bubble, where she was basically upset because ESPN wanted to take her off of the NBA and then give it to Maria Taylor at the time. And she believed that they were doing that to fill some type of diversity quota. And she didn't like that because I believe she was promised that job. And then they heard that, and then that audio came out. And then ultimately she was let go. And it was this big thing, right? And we covered it at the time. Good. Time goes on. She leaves ESPN. Then later on, she was doing some stuff, I believe, with Showtime. And then now you see her back on television working for FS1, Fox Sports 1, and she makes appearances now she's a weekly contributor on Undisputed Live with Skip Bayless, Keyshawn Johnson, and the rest of these people up there. Good. So we know that. Now, this morning, was going through the internet, and I came across an article from Fadeaway World that was linking, an interview that took place on the Awful Announcing podcast. Now, during that interview, I came across this video, and it says Michelle Beadle discusses role of Rachael Nichols and LeBron James discusses role Rachael Nichols and LeBron James played in her NBA Countdown exit, because she also used to be on that show as well. So I click on it. Now, here's the interesting part. We were initially, when I was watching that clip, I was watching it for another show we produced earlier today. Obviously, it depends in the order in which you're seeing these shows. So after I had gotten the part that I wanted for that other show, I continued to listen because I didn't really pay much attention to the title. As I was listening, and now veered off into this conversation about the role that Rachael Nichols played in her departure. In this case, her referring to Michelle Beadle's departure from ESPN. And I was very, very surprised. The reason I was surprised was because of what had happened to Rachael Nichols a few years ago. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Michelle Beadle had to say about the role that Rachael Nichols played on her exit from NBA Countdown. And then we're going to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to that there.
Did you have a working relationship with Rachael Nichols before she replaced you on Countdown?
We were civil. Some people I don't trust in this business. That's one of them.
After she had audio leaked from a private conversation and was subsequently fired by ESPN, you not so subtly tweeted that karma is a bitch.
Yes, it is.
Do you think that Rachael Nichols personally influenced your departure from Countdown?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
mean, look, she ultimately is not that powerful, but I think some of the narrative that was being allowed to be played out, like specifically in the New York Post at the time, I knew where it was coming from. We all knew where it was coming from. and it wasn't being stopped, which is unfortunate. You know, you invest in someone time and salary and all of those things that they had done at that point, to sort of just let it go because you don't want to deal with the ramifications or the bickering or the whining. That's not a good enough reason, but it is what it is. Decisions were made. Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot, but I also learned there are some things you can't control. I don't regret not getting down in the trough and slopping around in that mess. Maybe at the time I had thought about it more, like maybe fighting back, but it's not a good look. And I've never really done my career that way. And I hope to never do my career that way. I think your work should stand on its own and shouldn't be a bunch of backstabbing and stuff that goes on behind it. It's not a good way to do it.
So then I have to at least ask if Rachael Nichols engaged in, we'll say, media war games to replace you on Countdown, and we'll say at least somebody from Maria Taylor's camp did the same to get Nichols removed from the show.
Yeah. Jesus.
Did you do anything similar when you replaced Sage Steele to get the job?
No. And I know that narrative was floated out there too. I didn't have to. I mean, the decisions that were made had been made. What happens is, what I've learned now is that depending on what side of that story you are, you sort of can now go out and play that. So you can play the victim card if that behooves you, or you can go on the offensive, but you do it sneakily. So it's just gross. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a little bit blunt and I'm a pretty honest person, but I'm also very short on patience. All of these games, it feels filthy. Like, it feels dirty. And I loved the job. Like, I loved doing NBA Countdown. It was a dream gig. And when my new contract was coming up, that was a big part of the selling point, was like, do you want to host NBA Countdown? That's going to be something you can do. I was like, absolutely. It was a dream job at the time. And then that sort of all came out. And I know Sage felt very much like she'd been blindsided. I wasn't told she was blindsided. Like, I knew what was coming. So who knows? That's a Sage question. You'd have to ask her what she had heard or was told.
So you heard what she had to say. Now, to be honest with you guys, when I was listening to that, it was eye-opening, because I began to realize just how cutthroat of an industry this is. I mean, based on what I can ascertain from the information I got from that interview, it seems like there was a lot of backstabbing taking place, a lot of conniving, a lot of scheming in the corner and trying to wait for people to have a blunder, and then you take advantage. That's what it seemed like to me. It seemed very cutthroat. And if you listen to what she said you would think people are your friends and all of that, but then people have their eye on your position. And it also made me begin to remember the situation that took place between Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith was very, very cold about his approach to Max Kellerman. And even after being the sole reason Max Kellerman was removed from ESPN First Take, he then came out, he still comes out today, talking about how Max wasn't this, how Max wasn't that, how he wasn't qualified, how he didn't rate well on all of these different things. And I'm like, man, this is a pretty dirty game. A very, very dirty game. As a matter of fact, I was listening to an episode from Marcellus Wiley's show where he was talking about his departure from FS1 on the show Speak for Yourself, that's now branded as Speak, and he was talking about how things went down at that show. And I'm like, the reoccurring theme here is like, man, people will do anything to be in a position of power and get one of these jobs. Now, for those of you who are unaware, if you can get one of these top jobs in this industry, they'll pay you well. They'll pay you well. I mean, some people are earning over $1 million a year. If you're earning over $1 million a year, I believe you're in the 1%. Yeah, I think that'll put you in the 1% in the United States. So getting one, I mean, these jobs must be very, very coveted. So if you're earning that, some people earn more. Some people earn 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, so people would do anything, it seems, to get into those positions. That was the surprising part. And the backstabbing and all of that, that's something I didn't expect, because when you think of sports, you think of fun, you think of excitement. You don't think of backstabbing and this guy throwing this guy into the butt. You don't think about all those things. So for her to say that, and that's the reason why she said when that thing happened, when Rachael Nichols got removed from ESPN, she was one of the people that said karma's a you know what. Now I understand it. At the time I didn't. So to me, man, it's a very cutthroat game. And it seems like people will do anything, literally anything, to get to the top of the game. And to me, it's quite sad because there's so much space out there. And the irony of it is now, I mean, if you look at today, for example, you don't have to be sitting here clamoring for some television job when you can go out there, you know, and kind of do it on your own. But for some people, they don't want to do that. There's a security and a check, especially from one of these big networks. Obviously, you're going to have a bigger platform. So your message is going to be disseminated to more people out there. But to me, man, I just sit back and ask myself, I'm like, bro, is it really worth it? All of these secret moves and all of these antics and the backstabbing, I don't know. That's just me. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about what Michelle Beadle had to say? Does any of it surprise you at all? Whatever you guys think about this subject, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we catch you guys on the next show. Peace.